Saturday afternoon, 2:47 p.m. I was parked on my mother's street. I had driven 40 minutes to surprise her. Flowers on the passenger seat, her favorite, yellow tulips. And then I saw it, the car in her driveway. I knew that car. I had ridden in that car 1,000 times. I had fallen asleep in that car on long drives. I had cried in that car. I had laughed in that car. I knew every scratch on the bumper, every dent on the passenger door. It was my ex-husband's car, in my mother's driveway. 2 months after their divorces, his from me, hers from my father. I sat in my car for a very long time, and then I remembered something. My mother has always been afraid of locking herself out. She keeps a spare key above every door she has ever lived behind. I looked at the front door of her new house, and I made a decision. My name is Grace Whitfield. I am 22 years old. I have been 22 for 3 months, and in those 3 months, my entire life has been dismantled and rebuilt so many times that I am not entirely sure which version of it I am currently living in. Let me start at the beginning, because the beginning matters. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. My parents' house in the Midtown neighborhood, a craftsman bungalow on a wide street with old oak trees that drop their leaves in November in a way that looks like something from a painting. My mother, Diane, my father, Thomas, married for 24 years, the kind of marriage that looked, from the outside, completely solid. Looked. I need to tell you about my mother before I tell you anything else, because my mother is the center of this story in a way that I am still, even now, even after everything, trying to understand. Diane Whitfield is 51 years old. She is a beautiful woman. That is not irrelevant. It is part of how she moves through the world, part of how she has always understood herself and her power. She has the particular vanity of someone who was very beautiful young and has worked very hard to maintain it, and has mostly succeeded. She is 51 and she looks 41, and she knows it and she uses it. She is also charming, effortlessly, specifically charming, the kind of charming that makes people feel special just for being in her orbit. She remembers birthdays, she sends flowers, she says the right thing at the right moment with the right tone. People adore her. I adored her. For 22 years, I adored my mother in the particular way of a daughter who has not yet been given a reason not to. I met Ryan Cole when I was 19. He was 24. He worked in construction management, not glamorous, but solid. He was from Memphis, same as me. He had the easy confidence of someone who knows his city and his place in it. He was funny. He was warm. He was the kind of man who fixed things without being asked and remembered how you took your coffee and showed up. My mother loved him immediately. I remember that specifically. The first dinner I brought him to, my parents' house, Sunday, the kind of dinner my mother made an occasion without making it formal, she turned her full attention on Ryan, and he received it the way everyone received my mother's attention, gratefully, a little dazzled. After dinner, my mother pulled me into the kitchen. She said, "He's wonderful. Don't let him go." I did not let him go. We dated for 8 months. We got engaged at 20. We were married at 21. I was 21 years old and I was married, and 3 months later I found out I was pregnant, and I will not pretend that the timing was entirely planned. My daughter's name is Lily. She is 14 months old. She has Ryan's gray eyes and my dark hair and a laugh that makes every room better. She is the best thing I have ever done. She is also, I think, the beginning of when things started to go wrong. I want to be precise about what changed after Lily was born. Not immediately, not in the dramatic way of television stories where everything falls apart at once. Gradually, the way water finds the weak points in a foundation, not all at once, just quietly, persistently, finding every crack. Ryan was 30 when Lily was born. He was good with her, I want to say that. He was not a bad father. He came to the hospital and he held her and he cried in the specific way of men who are surprised by how much they feel. And that was real. But something changed. In the 6 months after Lily was born, something in Ryan shifted. The attention narrowed. Not dramatically, just incrementally, a degree at a time. He worked late more often, not every night, not conspicuously, just more often than before. He was quieter at home. Not cold, I want to be careful about this because cold is the wrong word. More absent, present in the room but not in the conversation. The particular distance of someone whose mind is regularly somewhere else than where their body is. I noticed. I said something. He said he was tired, work stress. He said it would pass. I believed him. 3 months passed. It did not pass. By the time Lily was 6 months old, the distance had become the texture of our marriage. Not a crisis, nothing dramatic, no fights, no accusations, just the daily accumulation of a man who had stopped reaching for me, stopped initiating, stopped asking how I was in ways that suggested he actually wanted to know. And then there was my mother. I need to tell you about this carefully because it is the part of the story I understand least and feel most. My mother began, and I'm searching for the right word, she began withdrawing from me around the same time Ryan did. Not obviously, my mother is too skilled at appearances for anything obvious, but the calls became shorter, the visits less frequent. When we were together, she was distracted, in a way that I attributed to her own life, her own concerns, the natural busyness of a woman with a full professional and social calendar. When she was with Ryan, she was different, fully present, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm when she made a point, asking him questions with the focused attention she had turned on him at that first Sunday dinner and apparently never turned off. I noticed. I told myself I was imagining it. 21 years old, new mother, tired, sleep-deprived, and slightly lost in the particular fog of early motherhood that nobody adequately prepares you for. I was imagining it. The first time my mother said something that stopped me completely was 4 months after Lily was born. We were in her kitchen. She had come to help for an afternoon, ostensibly to give me a break, and we were having coffee while Lily napped. An ordinary Tuesday. She said, "You know, Grace, Ryan works very hard. I hope you're making sure he feels appreciated." I looked at her. "I'm sorry?" "I just mean, he provides for this family, he works long days, the last thing he needs to come home to is a wife who is too tired to—" "Too tired to what?" I said. She looked at her coffee. "I'm just saying, men need to feel wanted, valued. If they don't get that at home, they'll look for it elsewhere." I was 21 years old and I had a 4-month-old daughter and I hadn't slept more than 4 consecutive hours in weeks, and my mother was sitting across from me telling me that my husband's increasing distance was my fault. I did not say what I wanted to say. I said, "I'll keep that in mind." She nodded. She changed the subject. But something had shifted between us. A small thing. A degree of warmth that left and did not come back. Over the following months, the comments continued. Not always direct. My mother's too sophisticated for consistently direct. Mostly indirect. Ryan mentioned he wishes you two had more time together. Maybe find a babysitter more often. I ran into Ryan at the hardware store. He seemed a little down. Is everything okay at home? You know, when you married him, you married a man who needs a partner, not just a co-parent. Each one landing differently, each one with the same underlying message. The problem was me, my inadequacy, my failure to be whatever Ryan needed. And every time, Ryan first, Ryan's needs, Ryan's feelings, Ryan's perspective. Not once in the 6 months of this did she say, "How are you?" Not the polite "how are you," the real one. Not once. The divorce papers arrived on a Wednesday morning. I was feeding Lily breakfast, an envelope on the doorstep. I did not understand what it was at first. The return address was a law firm, which meant nothing to me. We had no ongoing legal matters. I opened it at the kitchen table with Lily in her high chair, eating banana pieces and looking at me with Ryan's gray eyes. I read it twice, and then I sat very still for a long time. Ryan came downstairs 20 minutes later. He looked at the envelope on the table, he looked at me, and he said, "I was going to talk to you." "When?" I said. "Soon," he said. "Soon," I said. He sat down. He told me it was not working, that he had felt for a long time that we were not compatible, that he cared about me but was not in love with me, that he wanted to co-parent well, and he hoped we could do that. He said these things in the specific tone of someone who has rehearsed them, who has been told by someone or himself the right way to have this conversation. Measured, careful, complete. I listened to it all. I looked at Lily. I said, "Was there someone else?" He said, "No." I looked at him. He did not look away. "Okay," I said. That was all I said. That day. I called my mother that afternoon. She answered on the second ring. I told her. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Oh, sweetheart, I was afraid of this." "You were afraid of this?" I could see things weren't right between you. I hoped it would work itself out." I sat with that. "Mom," I said, "did you know?" "Of course not. How would I know?" I believed her. For 3 more months, I believed her. The divorce was finalized in March, 6 months after the papers arrived. We split custody of Lily, weekdays with me, weekends with Ryan. The apartment went to me, the car payments were divided, the lawyers were efficient, and the whole thing was, as divorces go, structurally clean. Structurally. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, my mother called me. She said, "Your father and I need to talk to you about something." I drove to the house on Sunday. My father was in the living room when I arrived. He looked like a man who had not slept in several days. My mother was across from him. She told me that she and my father were separating, that she had been unhappy for a long time, that she had tried to make it work, but she believed they wanted different things from this stage of their lives. I listened to all of it. I watched my father's face while she said it, and something, a small thing, a quiet thing, landed in my chest, a question I could not yet form into words. Why now? Why, of all the moments in 24 years of marriage, now? 3 months after my divorce, 3 months after Ryan Cole left my life. Why now? My parents' separation was handled the way my mother handled most things, efficiently, with the appearance of mutual decision-making, and with the particular skill of someone who has already thought through the narrative before presenting it to anyone. My father moved to a condo in East Memphis within 2 weeks. My mother stayed in the Midtown house for 1 month and then announced she was ready for something new. She found a townhouse in a neighborhood called Germantown, newer, quieter, the kind of suburb that is comfortable and unremarkable. She moved in April. I helped her move. Of course I did. I'm her daughter. I carried boxes and hung curtains and helped arrange furniture, and I made her tea afterward. And I sat across from her in her new kitchen, and I thought, she seems lighter. Not grieving, lighter. The specific lightness of someone who has put down something heavy. I thought about my father in his condo. I thought about his face when she spoke on Sunday. I went home. I did not allow myself to think too specifically about the thing I was not yet thinking. April passed. May arrived. Lily turned 14 months old and took her first real steps across my kitchen floor, and I sat on the floor and watched her and called Ryan to tell him, and he answered and listened and said, "That's amazing," and the whole conversation was 23 seconds long and perfectly civil and completely empty. I talked to my mother 3 times a week. She was busy, her new house, her work, her social life, which seemed to be accelerating in a way that I noticed but did not examine. I mentioned Ryan twice in casual conversation, not pointedly, just mentioned. I ran into Ryan at the coffee shop. He looked well. Ryan called to ask about Lily's pediatric appointment. He said you weren't answering. I told him to try again. Both times I said something neutral and moved the conversation on. Both times something settled slightly lower in my chest. The Saturday in June began as an ordinary Saturday. Lily was with Ryan for the weekend. I had spent the morning doing the things you do on a quiet Saturday when your child is somewhere else. Laundry, a long shower, coffee that stayed hot all the way to the bottom of the cup. Small, unremarkable luxuries. At 2 in the afternoon, I decided to surprise my mother. I had not seen her new house since I helped her move in April. I stopped at the flower market, yellow tulips, her favorite, the ones she'd grown in the Midtown garden for as long as I can remember. I drove to Germantown. I turned on her street. I was looking for her house number. I had only been there once, and the street was long. I found it, and I stopped. There was a car in my driveway. I knew that car. I knew it the way you know a car you have ridden in hundreds of times. The specific dark blue, the dent on the passenger door from 3 years ago, the University of Memphis parking permit sticker Ryan had never gotten around to removing. Ryan's car, in my mother's driveway, on a Saturday afternoon in June. I sat in my car at the end of the driveway for a very long time. I counted to 100. I thought about rational explanations. He had come to drop something off, but Lily was with him this weekend, and my mother was not on the co-parenting communication chain. I could not finish the sentence. I could not finish it, but my body had already finished it for me. The particular physical response of a person whose mind has not yet arrived where their instincts already are. I sat very still. And then I remembered something. My mother's fear of locking herself out began when I was 8 years old. She had left her keys inside and had to wait 3 hours for a locksmith and had declared afterward, with the particular conviction of someone who has decided to learn from an experience, never again. After that, every house she ever lived in had a spare key, always above the doorframe, same place. The Midtown house, above the back door frame, behind the small decorative bracket she had screwed there specifically. I had used that key twice in 22 years. Once at 16 when I locked myself out, once at 19 when I came home early from college and she wasn't there. I got out of my car. I walked to the front door. I reached up. My fingers found it immediately. Cold metal, spare key, above the doorframe, same place. Of course. I held it in my hand. I stood on my mother's front porch with yellow tulips in one hand and a spare key in the other. And I made a decision. Not in anger, in the particular cold clarity that sometimes comes instead of anger when something is too large for heat. I put the key in the lock. I turned it. I pushed the door open. The house was quiet downstairs. It smelled like my mother's perfume and coffee and the particular warm air of a house in Tennessee in June with the windows closed against the heat. I set the tulips on the hall table. I stood in the entryway, and from upstairs, sound. I stood at the bottom of the stairs for a long time, long enough that I could have left. Long enough that I could have put the key back on the doorframe and walked to my car and driven home and chosen not to know what I already knew. I chose not to do that. I opened my phone. I opened the camera. I switched to video. I pressed record, and I walked up the stairs, one step at a time, slowly. The stairs in my mother's new townhouse were carpeted. She had chosen the carpet herself, a soft gray, the kind that muffles footsteps. She had no idea I was there. I reached the top of the stairs. There was a hallway. 4 doors, 3 closed, 1 slightly open. The one at the end, the master bedroom. I walked toward it. My phone was in front of me, recording. I pushed the door open with 1 finger, and I saw what I saw. I will not describe it in clinical detail. What I will tell you is this. My mother, my ex-husband, my mother's new bedroom, 2 months after her divorce from my father, 9 months after my marriage to Ryan began to fall apart. 9 months. I stood in the doorway for 4 seconds. 4 seconds with my phone recording. Then I pulled the door back to exactly where it had been. I walked down the hallway. I walked down the stairs. I picked up the yellow tulips from the hall table. I walked out the front door. I locked it behind me. I put the key back above the doorframe. I walked to my car. I put the tulips on the passenger seat. I drove away. I was 6 blocks away before I pulled over. And then, for the first time since I sat in the driveway and counted to 100, I fell apart. I sat on the side of a road in Germantown, Tennessee for 22 minutes. I know the time because I looked at my phone when I pulled over and looked again when I finally drove away. 22 minutes. The same age I am. I thought about 9 months. I thought about the 6 months of Ryan's distance. I thought about my mother's comments. Men need to feel wanted. If they don't get that at home, they'll look for it elsewhere. I thought about the divorce papers on my kitchen table. I thought about my father's face on that Sunday. I thought about 14 months of Lily's life, and every Sunday dinner, and every careful comment, and every moment my mother had looked at my husband the way she looked at him at that first dinner, with her full attention, and never turned it off. My father opened the door before I finished knocking. He looked at my face. He stepped back. He let me in. His condo was the kind of space a man creates when he has been asked to leave the life he built and start over in a smaller footprint. Functional, clean, not unhappy but not finished either. Boxes still partially unpacked in the corner. Furniture that was clearly from the Midtown house, relocated without particular arrangement. He made coffee. We sat at his kitchen table. I put my phone between us. I pressed play. He watched the 4 seconds. He watched them twice. Then he sat back in his chair, and he looked at the ceiling for a very long time. I watched my father. Thomas Whitfield is 54 years old. He is a quiet man, the kind of quiet that is not emptiness but depth, the kind that comes from a person who has learned that most things do not require a response and has become selective of which ones do. He did not cry. He did not say anything for a long time. When he finally spoke, he said, "How long do you think?" "At least 9 months," I said, "based on when things changed with Ryan." He nodded slowly. "She asked for the separation in March," he said, 2 weeks after your divorce was finalized." "I know," I said. "She said she had been unhappy for a long time," he said, "that she wanted something different." "She wanted someone different," I said. He looked at the table. "Your ex-husband," he said, the words careful, like he was placing them precisely. "Yes," I said. Silence. "Grace," he said, "what do you want to do?" I had been thinking about that for 22 minutes on the side of a road in Germantown, and on the drive here, and for every minute of the 40 minutes between her house and his. "I want them to answer for it," I said. "Both of them." He looked at me. "How?" he said. I picked up my phone. I want to be precise about what I decided and what I did not decide. I did not decide to post the video publicly. I am 22 years old, and I am a mother, and I have a co-parenting relationship with Ryan Cole that will last for the next 16 years, and I was not going to make a decision in anger that would damage that relationship for Lily's sake. What I decided was more targeted than that. Family. Both families. Ryan's parents, Sandra and Dale, who had been at our wedding, who had held Lily at the hospital, who had been present for the life he and I had built together. Ryan's sister, Cassandra, who had been in my bridal party. Ryan's aunts and uncles and cousins who had attended our wedding and sent gifts and welcomed me into the family. My mother's sister, my Aunt Patricia, who had always been the more grounded of the two sisters and who had supported my mother through the separation with a loyalty I now understood was based on incomplete information. My mother's closest friends, 3 women she had known for 20 years, who had consoled her through the divorce, who had helped her move into the new house. Every single one of them. I sat at my father's kitchen table and I made a list. Phone numbers and email addresses. I had most of them from years of family gatherings and holiday card lists, and the natural accumulation of extended family contact information. For the ones I did not have, my father helped. We sat there for 2 hours. We did not talk much. We made the list. And then I went home. I did not send anything that night. I gave myself 24 hours. Not because I was unsure, because I wanted to be certain that what I was doing was not heat. I have seen what heat produces. Decisions made in heat that cannot be unmade. Words sent that cannot be recalled. I did not want heat. I wanted clarity. I went home. I fed Lily dinner. Ryan had dropped her back at 6, and the handoff was the way our handoffs always were. Civil, brief, structured. He stood at the door. I stood in the doorway. Lily transferred between us with the easy adaptability of a child who has always known 2 homes. He looked at me the way he always looked at me, like someone maintaining a careful distance, like someone who is good at appearances. I looked back at him, and I thought, you have no idea what I know. See you Wednesday, he said. Wednesday, I said. He left. I closed the door. I held Lily and I put her to bed, and I sat in the rocking chair in her room while she slept, and I thought about the video on my phone and the list on my father's kitchen table. And I thought about my mother, the woman who had looked at my husband at that first Sunday dinner and turned her full attention on him and never turned it off, who had said, men need to feel wanted, who had sat across from me in my kitchen 4 months after Lily was born and told me the problem was mine, who had called me after the divorce papers arrived and said, I was afraid of this. She had been afraid of it because she had been engineering it. That arrived cleanly, without heat, just clearly. The following morning, I sent the messages.
I sent them individually. Not a mass message. That felt wrong, felt performative. Each person received the same video with a brief note, 3 sentences. The note said, I'm sending this because I believe you deserve to know the truth about what has been happening. This was recorded 2 days ago. I thought you would want to know who these people actually are. I sent Ryan's family first. Sandra, Dale, Cassandra, the aunts, the cousins. Then my mother's circle, Patricia, the 3 friends, 2 colleagues she was close to. 31 messages total. I sent the last one at 9:14 in the morning. I put my phone face down on the table. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen window. The Memphis morning outside, the oak tree in the yard dropping the last of its spring pollen. My phone began buzzing at 9:27. It did not stop for 4 hours. I did not answer any of them. Not Ryan's. Not my mother's. She called 11 times before noon. Not Sandra's, Ryan's mother, who left a voicemail that I listened to once and then deleted. Not Cassandra's. Not Patricia's. I let them all ring. I sat at the kitchen table and I drank my coffee and I looked at the oak tree and I let the phone ring. My mother came to my apartment at 2 in the afternoon. She did not call first. I heard her car in the parking lot. I watched from the window. She sat in her car for 7 minutes before she got out. I watched her walk to my door. I heard her knock. I stood in my hallway. She knocked again. Grace, she said, through the door. Please. I stood very still. She knocked a 3rd time. Grace, I need to explain. Please, just let me. No, I said. Through the door. 1 word. She was quiet. Grace. No, I said again. I heard her put her hand against the door. I heard her breathing. And then I heard her walk away. I went back to the kitchen window. I watched her get in her car. I watched her sit there for a long time. And then she drove away. Ryan called me 17 times that day. I answered on the 18th call, not because I was ready to talk to him, because Lily was with me, and she deserved parents who could function in the same space, and that required, eventually, a conversation. He said, Grace. I said, say what you need to say. He said, I'm sorry. I know that's not. How long? I said. A pause. 8 months, he said. 8 months. I had said 9 months to my father. I was off by 1. Before the papers, I said. Yes, he said. While we were married, I said. Yes, he said. Did you leave me for her? I said. The longest pause. It's complicated, he said. It really isn't, I said. He was quiet. Lily, I said. We are going to co-parent Lily. That is the only thing we are going to do together for the rest of our lives. Whatever this is, whatever you and my mother are, that is yours to manage. I don't want to know about it. I don't want Lily to know about it until she is old enough to understand what it means. And you are going to be the one to explain it to her when that day comes, not me. Grace? "Those are the terms," I said. He was quiet for a long time. "Okay," he said. "Okay," I said. I hung up. My Aunt Patricia called me that evening. She was the one call I answered willingly. Patricia has always been the sister who told the truth. My mother's opposite in that specific way. Blunt where my mother was graceful. Direct where my mother was strategic. She said, "I owe you an apology." I said, "You don't." "I do," she said. "Your mother told me things about your marriage, about you, about why she thought it was falling apart. I believed her. I shouldn't have believed her without talking to you." "What did she tell you?" I said. She told me. My mother had been building a narrative for months, a narrative in which I was the problem, difficult, cold, failing as a wife and partner, in which Ryan was trying, good, patient, trying, and not being met. A narrative that positioned my mother as a sympathetic observer, that justified, in the telling, what was happening underneath it. "She needed people to understand before they found out," Patricia said quietly. She was laying groundwork. I sat with that. "She's my mother," I said. "I know," Patricia said. "She built a story to make what she was doing make sense," I said, "and she used me to build it." "Yes," Patricia said. I looked at Lily asleep in the monitor on the counter, 14 months old, Ryan's gray eyes. "I don't know how to be her daughter right now," I said. "You don't have to know right now," Patricia said. "You just have to get through right now." My mother sent me a letter. Not a text, not an email. A letter, handwritten, 6 pages. It arrived 10 days after the Saturday in Germantown. I sat with it unopened for 3 days. Then I opened it. I will not reproduce what it said because some things belong to the people they were written to. What I will say is that the letter contained 2 things, an explanation and an apology. The explanation was long and detailed, and in its way, honest. She had known Ryan for 3 years, had watched him and me, had felt something she described as not looking for, had told herself for 8 months that it was nothing, had finally not been able to tell herself that anymore. She said she had never stopped loving me. She said she did not know how to reconcile what she felt with what she had done to me. She said she was sorry in a specific language of someone who is genuinely sorry and also genuinely unable to undo anything. I read all 6 pages. I sat with them for a long time. Then I folded them back into the envelope, and I wrote back. My letter was 1 page. I said, "I received your letter. I am not ready to talk. I do not know when I will be. I need time to understand who you actually are. I need more time to understand who I am in relation to who you actually are. Do not contact me for 30 days. After 30 days, I will reach out." I sent it. She did not contact me for 30 days. 31 days later, I drove to Germantown. I did not bring flowers. I knocked on the door. She opened it. She looked smaller than I expected. Not physically. She was still my mother, still the woman who had spent 20 years being the most composed person in any room. But something had gone out of her, the particular light of someone who has been seen completely and knows it. I went inside. We sat in her kitchen, the kitchen I had helped arrange in April, the kitchen where I had made her tea and thought, "She seems lighter." We talked for 3 hours, not easily, not without stopping, not without long silences that neither of us filled, because we had not yet figured out what to put in them. She asked about Lily. I showed her photographs. She cried. I did not. At some point she said, "I know I don't get to ask for forgiveness. I know that's not how this works." "No," I said. "It's not. But I want you to know," she said. "I am not the mother I showed you these past months. I know that doesn't undo it, but I want you to know." I looked at her. My mother, the woman who had grown gardenias and made Sunday dinners and folded 30 years of love into the ordinary texture of a family, and then, over 8 months, had dismantled all of it, for a reason I still did not entirely understand and perhaps never would. "I know you're not only that person," I said. I also know you're not only the person I thought you were before. You are both. And I have to figure out how to be your daughter while holding both of those things." She looked at me. "Can you?" I thought about it honestly. "I don't know yet," I said. "But I'm here. That's something." She nodded. That was something. That's the whole story. Or the part I'm ready to tell. I want to say something to anyone who has ever had the person who was supposed to protect you be the one who didn't. Not a stranger. Not an enemy. The person you were supposed to be able to trust completely. Your mother. Your husband. The people whose love you were not supposed to have to question. I am 22 years old. I have a 14-month-old daughter. I co-parent with my ex-husband, who was also my mother's. I still don't have the right word for what he was to her. I am rebuilding a relationship with a woman I am still learning to see clearly. I am raising a daughter I want to protect from exactly the kind of hurt I experienced. And I am doing all of it while being 22 years old. Here is what I know. You do not have to choose between loving someone and holding them accountable. You can do both. They are not opposites. You can love your mother and send the video. You can grieve your marriage and record the truth. You can be devastated and still be standing. I am still standing. Lily is still laughing. Memphis is still beautiful in the morning. And I am still entirely myself. Exactly as I should be. Thanks for listening.